And greetings. Happy Friday. Welcome to the Steve Deace Show here live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. Steve Deace here with Todd and Aaron McIntyre. Going to be joined by our good friend Tracy Beanz from Uncover DC here for the Deace Group here in just a matter of moments. We're brought to you by our friends, though, over at First Cup Coffee Company, the Patriot-owned coffee company that shares the same values of faith, family, and freedom that you do. But that's not why you want to get their coffee. You want to get their coffee because it's pretty darn good. And then because they've got the right values as well. All right. So they've got a flavor for every freedom-loving American. They put the roast on date right there on every single bag. So you can see that it is shipped to you within days of being roasted because freshness is kind of their jam. All right. You want to get a discount? Go there today and use my code DACE when you do at firstcup.com. That'll get you the discount. Firstcup.com, promo code DACE. Again, firstcup.com, promo code DACE. And if you are looking for the Christmas gift for the discerning patriot in your life, how about a subscription to Blaze TV? BlazeTV.com/Deace right now. Get an annual subscription for $20 off. Our independent platform here at the Blaze is more crucial than ever before. BlazeTV.com/Deace. Get $20 off an annual subscription. Come and join us. We continue to expand. We continue to grow. And we want to have you be a part of that effort as well. BlazeTV.com/Deace. $20 off your annual subscription when you go there to BlazeTV.com/Deace. All right, next hour, it'll be your turn with Feedback Friday, but let us begin with the Deace Group. There she is. Good to say hello and Merry Christmas to Tracy. Let's get your weekly look at the week that was started, as it always does, with issue 1, Bleep, Lord Nefarious Says.
You have said repeatedly yourself since the election, the president has said for months, no pardon was coming. I wanted to ask you, could those statements now be seen as lies from the American people? Is there really a credibility issue here given now this announcement?
First of all, one of the things that the president always believes is to be truthful to the American people.
My main concern is what it says about Donald Trump's intention for the FBI and where Kash Patel might take the FBI if he's confirmed as director. And that all points in one direction, and that is back to the FBI's regretful history of acting as essentially the enforcement arm for the president's political activities.
We have some big picture stuff coming down the pike starting on January 21st. Mr. Bloomberg mentioned H5N1. That I'm really worried about.
According to Fox, when Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau went to Mar-a-Lago this weekend to try to talk Trump out of his 25% tariff threat, Trump apparently suggested that if Canada can't handle the tariffs that would violate the NAFTA upgrade Trump himself signed into law, the USMCA, they should just become the 51st state. Just become the 51st state instead and allow Trudeau to be reduced to governor of the state of Canada, which caused the prime minister and others to laugh nervously. Bottom line, this is how Trump operates on the world stage. He acts like he's everybody's boss, like he's the king of the world, which is bad news for basically everybody.
We're expecting dengue, Zika virus, Puche virus, yellow fever because of, in part, the anti-vaccine activism that's so prominent right now.
The second thing I would say is nobody has to provide this medication to adolescents. These are not doctors being forced to provide this medication. These are doctors who are wanting to treat their patients in the best way that they know how based on the best available evidence to us. And these are young people who may have known since they were 2 years old exactly who they are, who suffered for 6-7 years before they had any relief.
Cannot eliminate the risk of detransitioners, so it becomes a pure exercise of weighing benefits versus risk. And the question of how many minors have to have their bodies irreparably harmed for unproven benefits is one that is best left.
I'm sorry, counselor. Every medical treatment has a risk. even taking aspirin.
And that's just the beginning. We have another major coronavirus likely brewing. We have a big problem with mosquito-transmitted viruses all along the Gulf Coast. A 5-fold rise in pertussis cases, whooping cough, 15 measles outbreak, polio. All that's going to come crashing down on January 21st on the Trump administration.
It's amazeballs that those diseases are all going to wait until January 21st. I mean, it's pretty damn cold throughout much of America right now. Yet somehow these afflictions are smart enough to know that they have to wait until January 21st to get everybody sick. It's amazeballs. It truly is. All right, Tracy, ladies first, and we always put the guest first as well. So you get the first crack at this. What were you the most appalled by that you just witnessed, and why?
Okay, it was a tie for me, but I'm gonna say the female attorney trying to be a man. That was the most appalling. If that wasn't in there, I'll tell you later. I'll tell you when it's my turn again. That was the most appalling for me.
I just can't even envision what any previous generation of Americans, no matter how they voted, no matter what their socioeconomic status was. I mean, you and I are about the same age, Tracy. Yesterday was the anniversary of the John Denver Christmas special on network television that ran nativity stories with the Muppets, Kermit the Frog, all over the country. I would like to go back, okay, and just show the people that voted. Jimmy Carter was president then. I would like to go back in time and just show the people that, forget the Republicans, just show the people that voted for Jimmy Carter in the 1976 election. The clip that you're referencing, that this will be an interview and a topic of discussion when your children and grandchildren in the next generation come of age. This is what will be discussed. And it would absolutely blow all of their minds. It is truly, it's just remarkable, tragically, how far, we have fulfilled Bork's axiom about slouching towards Gomorrah. I mean, it is just incredible. Could you imagine if we got a chance to do that? Just grab a focus group, just hop in the DeLorean, grab a focus group of 100 Jimmy Carter voters randomly sampled around the country that voted for Jimmy Carter in 1976 and show them the John Denver Christmas special with the Muppets. And then right after that, say, by the way, in a generation, all the little kids that are in that auditorium singing Silent Night with John Denver and Kermit the Frog, okay, when their parents and grandparents, a generation from now, this is what's going to be on TV at Christmas time instead. And it's that dude, the bearded lady act, all right, with the voice that is just beyond ridiculous. Like if we drew up on the right a parody of a transvestite, it would sound like this. And except this is an unironic interview. I can't even imagine what even a focus group room of Jimmy Carter voters at Christmas time 1979, how they would possibly react to that. Right? They would think it's a scam. It's not true. It's a troll. A Candid Camera was renewed for another season. They would not believe it.
And the reaction sure as hell wouldn't have been telling them that, well, aspirin has side effects too.
Correct. All right. So Todd, your turn.
Yeah, Steve, obviously we've covered the tranny madness. I could double down on it and would be happy to. But I think there's something important needs to be said about what Steve just hitting the tip of the iceberg on. Oh, really? That's interesting. The virus is just going to wait a couple weeks and then go, boo! Guys, the magical power vaccine, it goes so much deeper than that. And it's good that we have somebody like Tracy Beanz, who I know has done some homework on this. But listen, my anti-vax credentials go way, way back beyond COVID. So where, if you stop vaccinating, think about this, because this is what people don't do. Where is viruses just hiding in the bushes out there? Where are they going to come from to come get you? Honestly, this is monsters in the closet kind of thing. We don't live in a third world country. We have diet, hygiene, not in all places, and Tracy talks about that all the time, sanitation, things like that. the implication that it's just out there ready to mug you is nonsense.
Why haven't the people that were already vaccinated, why aren't they safe from it if they're vaccinated?
That's the next step. And then what Steve has laid out before. Also, what are you scared of? I thought you're vaccinated. I've had this conversation with doctors. I don't think I'd want my children sitting next to yours. Why not? Yours are vaccinated. The scam goes so deep on this stuff.
By this logic, we should never, ever do any relief work, charitable work, mission work in any third world country ever.
Yes.
Because if this logic for it to remain consistent, right? Like I should have come back from that mission trip to Haiti a decade ago and just dropped dead. I mean, what would if by this logic, then you should never ever venture into a third world country ever. We should just cut them off from the rest of the world. There can be no relief work, no mission work, no charitable work, no Peace Corps work, because you're literally just risking your life every single time. Your vaccines don't work when you encounter the unvaccinated.
Yeah. And and then the next step after what you just said is, oh wait, well I know, but now it's not just about the individuals. It's the herd immunity. So herd immunity is a thing now. That's a thing now.
That was a right-wing conspiracy during COVID, exactly.
Which also isn't a thing because herd immunity with natural immunity actually is a thing because that's lasting. Herd immunity is a lie when it comes to vaccinated immunity because it's constantly waxing and waning and you're never at the 90 whatever percent that they say you have to be on. Guys, Steve just hit the tip of the iceberg in terms of the scam that witch doctor is talking about. Lies, damn lies, all of it.
So, Todd, let me throw this at you. And Tracy, you're welcome to chime in on this too. Because I know
I have so much to say.
You're a harbinger on this as well. Let's do this. If MSNBC still had me as a contributor like it did a decade ago, all right? And I was on, they let me get on, they wouldn't nowadays, obviously, but because I would do what I'm about to propose. But if I was on a panel with Pete Hegseth, wrong, Pete, sorry about that. But what's that guy's name? Hotez, thank you. If I was on a panel with Pete Hotez, all right, and I said, Doctor, a decade ago, the Obama administration State Department demanded that I update my classical immune schedule if I wanted to take a mission trip to Haiti, given the status of the country post-earthquake. It's the poorest country in our hemisphere. It's a haven for disease. All right. And I'm going to be down there for a good solid week doing actual work. Okay. And we're not just doing a tour here. We're going to do actual work. We're going to encounter the people. And the Obama administration made it clear I was welcome to go, but I would not be welcome to come back to the country without proof of updated standard vaccination schedule. So I did all that. All right. So I could go and I could come back. And once I showed that, once I got to customs there in Fort Lauderdale, or Miami, I mean, they just said, hey, nice. Welcome back home because I'm not carrying anything with me. Okay. Can you explain then why they let me back, doctor? Because by what you're claiming here, they should not have. Because I was just around a whole bunch of unvaccinated people. So therefore these vaccines that I had to take to go there did not work. What would he say?
Oh, it'd be fun to hear because I love where you're going with this. That's again the doctor.
I think it's a very simple, practical eyewitness question. Yeah.
I don't. It would be a version of. It would be very fear based. It's psychology. It's not medicine.
So it would be a straw man, and they would not directly address my question. Is what you're saying?
Because they can't, and they never do.
Tracy, what do you think his response would be if I got a chance to do that?
He wouldn't have one. He'd probably just run away and block you. Listen, I said this when people try to separate this food versus vaccine and pharmaceutical. What is that noise? Do you hear that?
Nope. We do not hear a thing.
Okay, I'll pretend it's not there.
Pharma coming to get you.
Yeah. When they try to separate it, I say this, there are viruses everywhere. They're on our skin right now. They're in our atmosphere. They're everywhere. They're on the desk. They're on the table. You can't vaccinate against a virus. And I'm on your side, Todd, with all vaccines in general. But if you have a healthy gut microbiome and you're taking care of yourself, guess what? You're going to be absolutely fine, even with measles or, even with the bird flu. For goodness sakes, it's asymptomatic in most people, even dairy workers that touch the raw milk that they don't want us to drink anymore. It's just about keeping yourself healthy. And the messaging out of HHS under this new administration should absolutely be keep your body healthy holistically from the top of your head down to the bottom of your toes. You're going to be just fine. Don't worry. It's like their version of viruses pounce. It's like Republicans pounce. Well, they're using viruses as their, come on, guys. Everybody.
And they're going to strategically pounce the day after Trump takes over, amazingly. Yeah. Yes, they're going to set out half the winter and just wait for Trump to take over. All right, Aaron, we've put you off long enough, brother. Go ahead and give your thoughts on your own montage.
That was all fantastic. I was hoping it would get some sort of reaction like that. But I'm going to go to a different thing. This is actually my favorite of the week. It's Joy Reid on MSNBC. And that total clip, went on for about 3 minutes. Oh, my goodness. He told Canadian Prime Minister Justin Castro he's going to make him the 51st state. He threatened people with tariffs. He talked really mean to the Middle Eastern terrorists taking hostages. This is how he acts on the world stage. He acts like he's everybody's bosses. About halfway through that diatribe from Joy Reid, she started to tune out. It was like the adults in Peanuts, wah, 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 and started to fade in was America. Yeah, that's what I heard. It's like you didn't have to sell me on this anymore. I really wasn't having any doubts about my vote for Donald Trump. So thank you, Joy Reid. You are my favorite of the week.
Indeed. What do you think it says that she caters to an audience that wants America emasculated? What do you think that says, right?
Yeah.
So we just flip that around. Well done there, Aaron, for sure. All right, let's get to the exit question. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being the odds Joe Biden was not going to end up pardoning his crack-smoking, whoremongering son, and 10 being the odds that Lindsey Graham would like to end up with Joe Biden's crack-smoking, whoremongering son. Rank this week's level of total depravity. Tracy.
You're going to be surprised. I've got reasons. I'm going to rank this low, 2 or 3 max. Here's why. Every clip, basically, that you guys showed, we're winning. We're winning. We're winning everywhere. It's a win everywhere. Everybody's mocking the Supreme Court. Everybody is mocking all of this nonsense that's going on. People mocked Hotez. We're winning. All of that was winning.
You know what? That's a good point, because I was actually thinking this is the worst montage Aaron's had in several weeks.
I was reflexively going to give it a 10 myself, but Mrs. Sunshine there.
Yeah, I think Mama kind of shamed us, frankly, to be honest with you. And all of her sons now kind of feel like they just got scolded, and we're looking at each other like, I got nothing. I got nothing. I'm at a 2. I'm at a 2, guys. You 2?
I'll go down to a 7. I'm not going to go like crazy 3.
There's a black sheep in every family, Tracy. Aaron, what about you?
How about an F? Just an F.
Just an F. All right. Don't forget, in these unprecedented times, if you are going to venture into still what is at least for another month and a half here, the Joe Biden Let's Go Brandon real estate market, you've got a real estate agent that you can trust, right? And where would you find such a person? Well, we try to make it as trusty and handy as we could with the website realestateagentsitrust.com. Just head there. We'll hook you up with an agent that we have fully vetted before we allow them into the database. And a lot of times they come from right here in the Blaze audience. So you share common values as well. So whether you want to get across the country or just across town, where you really need to go is across the finish line and get an agent that you can trust to help you navigate what is still one of the most difficult real estate markets in American history. So head over to realestateagentsitrust.com. Again, that's realestateagentsitrust.com. All right, let's get to issue 2, the House report on the Scamdemic.
The House COVID Committee released its final report this week after 2 years of investigation. Essentially, the report hit every single buzzword possible in and around the pandemic. It also confirmed and or recommended that the NIH did indeed fund gain-of-function research at the Wuhan lab. The report found that COVID emerging from a lab leak is, quote-unquote, not a conspiracy theory. It also found EcoHealth Alliance Director Dr. Peter Daszak should never again receive taxpayer funds. It also said public health officials lost the trust of the people and the COVID response was rampant with waste, fraud, and abuse.
All right, so Tracy, I know you have had a chance to review this, so we're just going to hand you the microphone here and let you take it from here. What did you think of the House report?
I'm not done with it yet. I'm not done with it yet. I saved some of it for the weekend. Listen, everybody knew it was a lab leak. It's important, right? We need to know that. But I feel like they took so much of their time and energy to focus on that. And obviously the waste, fraud, and abuse and the loans and all that was important. And obviously we needed to know about masks. But truthfully, they had such an opportunity here to enlighten the public about what they had been conned into injecting into their bodies over the past several years, and took an absolute free fall on it to the point where it was more than insulting.
Yeah, they actually claim that it saved. They unquestionably saved lives. When if you just actually look at before we even have to get into any charts, before you got to go to the Ethical Skeptic X account, all right, before you even have to do that, it's just simple math. If you just did simple math at the 7% rate of severe incident of the COVID vaccine, and you did a simple math of an IFR, CFR for hospitalization and death of COVID, you're way upside down. From an epidemiological perspective, you're way upside down. I mean, we're literally like it's like 160% more likely that you were going to end up in the hospital because of the COVID jab than you were because of COVID, and something like a 1,600% higher likelihood that you were going to die of the COVID jab than die of COVID. I mean, that's just epidemiological math. I don't even have to get into particulars. I don't have to delve into the origin of the jab and the virus and lipid nanoparticles. I don't have to get into any weeds at all. Just simply doing the math of epidemiology indicates that from a mass population standpoint, it didn't save any lives at all. Then you get into the whole markers of people like your show and ours have been doing, and the work we've been doing for the last few years, and start itemizing the damage it's done. But before we even get there, the math does not add up. The report's a lie.
And then you have to say to yourself, if they're going to lie about that, Steve, what about the rest of it?
Right.
If they can lie about that, like, thank you so much for all the time you dedicated to figuring out what Fauci and EcoHealth Alliance did. That's wonderful. What about all the people who are injured and dying right now? It's a travesty. It's a travesty, in my opinion. Like, why? Why did you spend all this time? Why did you spend all this time with hearings and not get to the actual truth of the matter? It's just terrible.
For cover, because the bottom line of this thing, if I had to give an elevator speech, what'd you glean from it? They protected Big Pharma. Mm-hmm. Look at all of them, Republican, Democrat, how much money they get from Big Pharma. Not to mention just the magical power of vaccine psychosis that everybody is under. Yeah, this thing is fraudulent. They told you a bunch of things you already knew if you were listening to this show. But bottom line, they protected the pockets and the continuing health scam that is injecting needle after needle after needle into you so that you can be systematically poisoned, and then part of the thing that's health care when it's really sick care.
Aaron?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of my inclination as well, kind of reading some of the bullet points of this report, is that it really, if you want a biblical analogy, I've made this analogy a lot. You know, it might be good overall, but it didn't tear down the high places, like the Old Testament talks about, with, very few exceptions to kings who were actually good, and then spacebar below that, kings who actually tore down the high places. It didn't do anything at all. And to kind of echo and piggyback on what Todd said, it's, just giving it the maximum benefit of the doubt that I can, you start to pull at the string of Big Pharma, and you realize how many things are underwritten by and dependent on pharma. I mean, you look, what was it? I think I was watching a basketball, one of those in-season tournaments brought to you by Novavax not that long ago, maybe a couple of weeks ago, last week during Thanksgiving week. You look at any of the major newscasts at night brought to you by fill-in-the-blank big pharmaceutical company. You start pulling at that string, as Todd said, some of the backers and donations and donors to some of these politicians. Yeah, it's just looking at it from human nature, it takes pretty huge intestinal fortitude to start to look at that thing in the eye and not have it look back. And it takes a lot of intestinal fortitude to even try to cross Big Pharma. So from a human nature standpoint, yeah, it's cowardly. But I think that's exactly what happened here. We just got to keep the status quo for what it is right now. You know, we got a lot of things out in the open, officially on the record from the U.S. government. Yeah, it was a lab leak. No, it's not a conspiracy theorist. No, Peter Daszak shouldn't have any more funding. Yeah, it was a lab. It was a gain of function. Yeah, we got all of that stuff out there that we already knew, but we didn't tear down the high places. So essentially, everything we wrote in Fauci and Bargan was 100% confirmed by the House Scamdemic report.
Yep.
The entirety of Fauci and Bargan, all of that was confirmed, which explains why no one ever came after us.
4 years ago.
And we sat here and waited for them to, someone, especially when the book went number one in the country, we expected them to come at us with something, and they just ignored us. Why? Because, as Han Solo once said, it's true, all of it. Right, which then brings us to the other bestseller, Rise of the Fourth Reich, and that's the one. That's the lightning rod that no one wants to touch. Right, that's what Tracy was getting into. So what is the itemized damage of all of these things, including the most damaging thing of them all? That's shot. Right, there's an elephant in the room still here where this is concerned, and it's the Florida grand jury. I checked with the little birdie just a couple days ago because I kind of had forgotten all about it. You know, we had sat here and waited all this year. We thought we were going to hear something at the end of January. We didn't, Then months went by. They gave us like a preliminary report in May, I think it was. And a lot of it is what was already in the House report. But then they asked for more time. And I know that they're looking at more than just the origin of the virus and everything else. They're looking at the jab and all the stuff we're talking about here because they're also the only health department in America that has confronted any of this, right? So real quick, does anybody have an inkling that the grand jury in Florida may get out ahead of where the feds are here, given the results of the election?
Yeah.
You still think they might?
Yeah, I do. Just because of the way that report was written. You had asked me to come on and talk about it. And it was written really well. So yeah.
Okay.
Considering how Republicans in Congress are treating a lot of Trump's nominees, combined with this report, it would be political malfeasance if Trump and Governor DeSantis together aren't trying to get out in front of this before Fauci is given a pardon.
That's another angle too that emerged this week. But wouldn't you have to? How do you give a blanket pardon?
Well, nothing matters anymore. So of course, that's the same thing as this. We have to ask. What's her face saying in Sotomayor and aspirin? We're just living in insane times, and people are just vomiting and dropping trow all over the place. That's why our work is just starting. Just starting.
Go ahead, Aaron, real quick.
Nobody's been able to answer the question, why would you give a pardon to somebody who hasn't committed a crime?
Yeah.
Right. Like, I floated earlier this week in response to the Hunter thing. Trump should, because they set a precedent already of going after him and his associates, right? So in this case, there's no legal case or pending or anything or anybody except for my graphic that I post constantly. What serious effort has been mounted to go after Fauci on a legal level whatsoever? Nothing. What would be the rationale for it?
When I was arrested, I was offered an Alford plea, which is not an admittance of guilt. You're just kind of, this is messy. I rejected it because I'm not doing that. I'm not guilty of anything.
Right.
That's Aaron's point is exactly over the target.
All right, let's get to real quick. Did you have something else you want to add in about 30 seconds there, Tracy?
Just quickly with the whole pardon thing. At this point, we should just be offering pardons when people start to take office to anyone in their administrations.
That's how absurd this is.
They're just trying to delegitimize the pardon, and they're trying to make it acceptable for zero accountability no matter what. We'll just have a lawless federal government at that point, and that's it at that point. So
correct. And then you're left with, if I don't take part in the lawlessness, they'll use their lawlessness against me, and I'm screwed. And so this is the vicious circle of what ends up in the kind of culture we're in today. Exit question, just give me a yes or no. Is RFK Jr. eventually confirmed as HHS secretary? Aaron?
Yes.
Todd?
Yes.
Tracy?
Yes.
Okay.
It's the only acceptable answer. It's that.
Well, I didn't say he better be confirmed. I said, will he be?
I know, but I don't.
What is your answer?
I think yes, because much of what's known about him in his private life is already out there. Okay. I think a lot of people were blindsided by the Pete Hegseth stuff. And I don't mean the stuff they tried to Kavanaugh with him. Like, I don't think a lot of people knew he was on his third marriage in a recent amount of time and everything else. There's other aspects of this that gave enough gray area for squishy Republicans to that have no moral values to claim they suddenly had some. Okay. A lot of people just didn't know his background. Everybody knows what pretty much every male Kennedy's background is to some degree. It's just, we're on a Maslow's hierarchy of disappointment where that's concerned. All right, when we come back, did we just have a Harriet Miers moment, and why does that matter? Stay tuned. All right, back here on the Steve Deace Show. We've got our good friend Tracy Beanz here with us. She'll rejoin us in a minute for the Deace Group. We're powered by our friends over at HILLSDALE. Folks, no institution works harder to give young people the best education in America than our favorite college, HILLSDALE College. For 180 years now, HILLSDALE's mission has been to develop the minds and improve the hearts of its students. And today, in just 30 seconds, you can learn what that means by watching a short video at DaceForHillsdale.com. That's DaceForHillsdale.com. Because since 1844, HILLSDALE has focused on learning, character, and faith and providing just the right kind of education needed to preserve American liberty. And they extend that mission nationwide through outreach efforts like their free digestive Liberty Imprimis and more. Too many other colleges and universities are indoctrinating their students to hate America, but at HILLSDALE, students learn how America became the freest and most prosperous nation in history and how it can remain so. All right? So go to DaceForHillsdale.com to learn more about what makes HILLSDALE so special. DaceForHillsdale.com, F-O-R, DaceForHillsdale.com. Again, that's DaceForHillsdale.com. All right, let's welcome back in Tracy Beanz here with us from Uncovered DC for the Deace Group. And let's continue on our weekly look at the week that was with issue 3. Did we just have a Harriet Miers moment?
Last week, Trump announced Chad Chronister, sheriff of Hillsborough County, Florida, as his pick to lead the Drug Enforcement Administration. Quickly, conservatives like our own Liz Wheeler and libertarians like Congressman Thomas Massie raised concerns over Chronister's petty tyrannical conduct during COVID, including the arrest of a pastor for flouting COVID guidelines. Well, that pastor then interviewed and gave his endorsement to Chronister over the weekend when the sheriff said this.
I have always appreciated that you know that I'm a follow-law sheriff, and I was following the law back then, and lousy laws, good laws, you have to be the sheriff and do your job, and you always understood that.
A couple of days later, and Chronister withdrew from consideration for DEA chief.
I also wonder, let me add an analog to this, and I want to be careful what I say, because there are reasons why I've not said a whole bunch about what's going on with Hegseth and Ron DeSantis and DOD. It's because, again, I'm honest with you guys, and I've always told you I am very transparent. I'll tell you everything I know unless it violates third-party confidences. And in this case, for me to tell you everything I know would, which is why you've seen me be very hesitant about this issue when a lot of my friends are very out there. First of all, I don't think Pete Hegseth, I just want to make sure I make this very clear. I don't think he should step aside at all and should fight this. It's a terrible precedent to set. Okay. But I also think that Ron DeSantis as Secretary of Defense would make the Pentagon wish it had Pete Hegseth. I mean, you're talking about a guy that has already done and knows how to do this stuff that Pete has eloquently stood for and spoken to. Okay. And it's a complicated situation, and so I'm just hesitant to wade into it. But I do think it is possible. Let me put it this way. Maybe I'll put it this way. I think it is possible that earlier this week, Donald Trump was ready to move on to Ron DeSantis, and has been hesitant to do so because of the volume of support that Hegseth has received from Trump's base. And you'll notice that all week long, everybody was talking about Pete Hegseth as Secretary of Defense, except for one person was very silent all week long. Who was that, Todd?
Him.
Donald Trump was. Donald Trump was the one person not talking. Did you notice that?
Yes.
Everybody's talking about it. It's the number one issue on the American right, and yet the king of the American right had been strangely quiet while everyone's talking about it until this morning.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this morning it came out in defense of Pete Hegseth, okay? So that's the first statement of support that Trump has made for Pete Hegseth since he announced the nomination. So I think it is possible that Donald Trump was willing to move on, thinking this wasn't going to work, cut his losses, and send Ron DeSantis in there, just making a guess here, speculating. And the volume of support that Pete has received this week has given Trump at least some cause for pause to give Pete at least more time to show that he can turn the thing around. Again, I'm just making a speculative guess that it's a potential analog to this topic here with the DEA agent. And the reason why this matters is because during the Bush administration, the only time the right stood up to him the entire time, while government grew and adventurism and military, escapades continued, was when he tried to take his legal counsel, his personal legal counsel, Harriet Miers, unvetted, and potentially sick another David Souter on us with a terrible Supreme Court justice that was unvetted. The right finally said, we just can't tolerate this. We're not covering for this anymore. And that's how we got Samuel Alito. In Trump's case, I think he's way more sensitive, way more in tune, and cares way more about the GOP base than George W. Bush ever did. And George W. Bush cared about it way more than anybody else named Bush ever has. All right. So I think that we might have a paradigm here where, during the primary, believe me, I experienced it firsthand. There wasn't much of a market for holding Donald Trump accountable. But now that he is in power, I mean, our show grew when we held him accountable during the final year of his administration during COVID, right? We were like, why are we doing this? Stop doing that. Our show exploded in growth during that period of time.
Correct.
Now that Trump is in power and we have the outcome we want, I wonder now actually if there is really a market for the right to hold Trump accountable and say, hey, stay on target. Be that voice in the Death Star trench, right? Hey, Luke, stay on target. What's everybody think? Aaron, I'll start with you this time.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you don't have a statement like that from Trump, the day after or a couple of days after Chronister pulls out where he's clapping back at the Wall Street Journal saying, no, I fired him. I didn't like the way he talked to my pastors and other supporters. You don't have that unless he definitely heard swift and hard pushback. And I just, tip of the cap to people like our own Liz Wheeler, who was right on the ball, saying, no, this dude's rather shady. Without people like that, we wouldn't even be having this conversation right now. Tip of the hat to Thomas Massie as well. He's been after the primary, he's been supportive of Trump, especially after the election, but he had the stones to say, no, this is not going to fly. And so I think there is a market for this, but there has to be good and obvious reasons and immediate reasons. And the headlines of arresting a pastor during COVID, that makes somebody, I have to think that made Trump cringe. So I think that might have something to do with it more than anything else.
All right. What do you think, Todd?
Well, it's not petty, petulant criticism.
No.
Like we experience a lot with a non-con. This is like, okay, man, we're on your side. Look at that great pick over there. That's steak. I want more steak. I won't settle for less than steak in this position. And you just gave me, what, less than Cheez-Its. And that's what this guy was. Trust me, this is the cop that arrested me when I was covering the floods. This is the cop that's following me around a soccer banquet. These guys, that's a terrible guy. And it's a long itemized list. It's not even just this example. We're not going to do this. You've shown us steak. We want steak. We won't settle for anything less than steak. That's a great standard, and you should defend it endlessly. And everybody who was applauding him for the right picks said, nope, not good enough. Go back to the drawing board.
All right, Tracy, what say you?
So many contradictions here, though, in the same sense. Like, look, there's no way he got through vetting without people knowing this. Just didn't happen. Maybe they assumed that nobody would care or people would just be quiet.
Are we talking about just a second, just to clarify, Hegseth Or the DEA nominee. The
DEA
okay.
nominee.
All right, go ahead. Yes. All right, just to clarify.
There's no way he made it through vetting without somebody knowing that he did those things. It's impossible. And so, yes, I think we do have a voice and we should use it. But that hasn't happened with other picks, which is an interesting sort of place for us to be, right? Because my thought process on it is, how are these things being segmented and handled in different ways? Is there an umbrella around some picks and not others? I don't know. Look, we got Cash because we were so vocal about Cash for weeks and weeks and weeks. That's my opinion. So we do have a voice. We just have to use it properly. And I'm glad that he's listening for the most part.
Does the voice, if we have this voice, final question on this, does it have an unlimited reservoir? Or do we have to pick and choose our spots?
Well, you pick and choose, again, based on the standard that it's not our standard. It's one that Trump has clearly said, I need to do better on. Before said, I didn't do well on personnel.
Yep.
He's nailed it.
That's the one thing he's shown humility on.
So that's the great thing. It's Trump's standard. Look at what you did. That's my point. You did this there. Every time you don't meet that, I'm going to probably tell you could do better.
Or at least tell us what we don't know about this person then, right? Because on the surface, this doesn't make any sense to us,
that's
right?
Tracy's point.
So tell us something we don't know. What is it, sir, that we don't know? We assume you know more than we do. So just tell us what it is we don't understand.
Yes, Tracy's absolutely right. It doesn't make sense to have Kash Patel and this dude in the same vetting process. You can't come to that conclusion. You can't.
Aaron, go ahead.
Yeah, I think, in the sense that this is what I meant by clear and obvious. Having the headline of your DEA pick arrested a pastor during COVID, that's a clear and obvious issue. Whether or not it was brought up in vetting, it was made an issue by the right people within Trump's orbit. That's a good thing. It can't be, Pete Hegseth goes to a Krek church, and so he has post-mill eschatology, and that's a problem for me.
Yeah.
You're descending, I'm just using that as an example.
Right.
You're descending into nag territory.
Yes.
You cannot be a nag.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Let's face it, that is not something on the right. We're really usually pretty good at navigating
we're
that.
not.
Yeah, and I will listen, man. I'm going to raise my hand. I have, Nelly, okay. I have descended into nag territory in my past, so I know that of which I speak. All right, Tracy, you look like there's something else you want to add to this before we move on. Am I misreading you?
No, I have so much to add about so many things. I'm basically muzzled lately. I just have too many things to say, so I'll skip it for now.
Pick one of them and say it right now. I don't want to muzzle you at all. Pick one of them and say it! Sam Kinison, say it! Yes.
This is what I want to say. The just following orders days are over. The fact that interview and, the law's the law and we just have to follow the law.
Oh, yeah.
No.
Yep.
Enough of that.
Yep.
Enough just following orders.
Amen.
Yeah, we did plenty on that on the show earlier this week. Exactly right. Yeah.
Every time I hear that, it's again, one of the most bizarre things, given that was the pastor that he arrested.
Yep.
The pastor should know better. No.
It's the pastor's job to correct that, as a matter of fact.
It was one of the most bizarre things I have seen this year.
It is the pastor's job to say, no, you need to repent for enforcing unjust laws. That's part of his job, actually, is to do that. Let's get to the exit question. If you could reject one other Trump cabinet appointment, whom would it be and why? Todd.
Well, it's not complicated enough. I said that Surgeon General appointment. It's heinous. It flies in the face of RFK Jr. and so much else that we are demanding from the healthcare industry. She's a fraud and she needs to go.
All right. What about you, Tracy? Go ahead.
I was going to say that too, but I'm conflicted on it, and here's why. She has followed me on X for a very long time, and she only follows 1,500 people. So part of me is like, I'm going to pay a closer attention to this. But we made just as much noise about her as we did about the DEA pick, and she's still there.
Yeah.
Just saying.
And to be fair, again, about her, many of the things she said about COVID were early in the process. She did go on Tucker's show late in 2021 and slam the FDA for approving the shots for children. So I'm not excusing all the other heinous things she has said or did, but it should be also noted she's one of the few public health people that even were willing to do that at all.
At that time.
Yes. Aaron.
So those are both good answers, or same answers, but I'm going with Kristi Noem. She just has no background and what she's being appointed to, that I'm aware of anyway.
I wonder if her background is frankly, she is very articulate and very attractive. And I wonder if her background is to be attractive and articulate
to provide cover.
To provide cover while they're deporting a bunch of people. Yep. You see what I'm saying? And if so, then it makes a lot of sense if that's what they're thinking, right? Put a pretty and articulate face on. We're just really doing what's best for the country here, okay? While the other side is over there opening spleens that, everyone's getting deported up in here. All right, it's
but
possible.
I mean, with all of these picks, though, I'm going to sit back and give them 5 seconds to cook. Just let them cook.
Yeah, fair. All right, real quick, kicker topic. If you could replace one of those cabinet officials with an alternative media figure, the one that you want to get rid of, who would the alternative media figure replacement be? Aaron, I'll go back to you.
Let's go with Joe Rogan as... let's go with Joe Rogan as Surgeon General, actually.
Right, Joe Rogan
so it
as
can't
Surgeon
be an
General.
actual doctor that's part of alternate. It has to be
whoever you said you wanted to get rid of, then replace him with you said you want to get rid of the Surgeon General. So replace him with an alternative media person.
Well, me.
That's cool. All right, you replace him with yourself. All right, Tracy, go ahead.
I'm going to say either me or Del Bigtree.
All right, that's good too. All right, let's get to predictions. Todd, I'll go to you first. Go ahead.
I've never seen anything like the pushback that Joni Ernst is facing. She will definitely be primaried.
Aaron.
Penn State knocks off Oregon in the upset in the Big Ten championship game tomorrow night.
I could totally see it. I mean, Oregon's clearly been the better team, but I mean, no one's even talking about Penn State. Nope. And it's not, I mean, when you give a team with that level of tradition, that big of a chip on the shoulder, you've seen it plenty of times. I could totally see it. Tracy, go ahead.
Somebody who lives in South Carolina, if they could get a little bit of help, would primary Lindsey Graham.
Do you have somebody in mind for that? As a matter of fact,
say it.
I mean, I don't know.
This one is a short distance dedication to Todd, who's literally only about 3 feet away from me. All right, this is for you, brother. There will only be 2 years of the 12-team playoff in college football. It will expand to at least 16 teams in 2026.
That's not your prediction. That's my prediction.
So the whole system, I know, that's why I just gave it right back to you. Yeah. The whole system that everybody's losing their minds over, it's just only going to be here for 2 years when they just expand it even more. Yeah.
Finally, all of the issues, controversies will finally be over at that point.
Yes, of course they will. Yeah. Of course they will.
Just like with instant replay. It's all as stupid.
There it is.
As I told you it would be. All of it.
There it is. There it is. There it is. Happy Friday.
You can hate me for it all you want.
Happy Friday, America. Tracy, it's always good to see you. All right. Thank you again for joining us. Love the background and the backdrop. It looks new. It looks really good. And
Thank you.
You bet. Not that you looked bad before, but that looks really good. So Merry Christmas to you and your family. And we'll see you again in 25. Okay.
Sounds great. Merry Christmas.
All right. Merry Christmas. Thank you. Real quick, do you guys have any thoughts on? Do you think there's any merit to the educated guess I gave of what's going on with Hegseth and Trump?
I think it's exactly right.
Just as likely as anything.
Then I think if there's any merit, if you think any merit to that on top of the DEA thing, then I think this is where you got to take the advice of our friend Daniel Horowitz. Maybe do it a little bit more diplomatically than Daniel would. But it is very clear the president is sensitive to what his constituents say, and let him know what you think. And he's actually prone to respond way more often than most Republicans have been in the past. Hour 2 is next. All right, back here on the Steve Deace Show. Hour number 2 underway on Blaze TV, radio and podcast. I am Steve Deace. He's Todd Erzin. He's Aaron McIntyre. Let us know what you think about what we think. Via the stevedeace.com inbox. That's Steve at stevedeace.com. DEACE. Like us on Facebook, MeWe, and Gab. You can also follow me at Steve Deace Show on X, Getter, Instagram, and TikTok. If you love the podcast version of the show, please leave us a 5-star review, as well as make sure to hit subscribe, or if you're on iTunes, follow. And that way, every time we do a new episode, it makes sure to show up in your podcast feed every single time. And so many of you have done both of those things, by the way. I mean, I don't know why, but I just looked again, and our podcast rankings are surging again this week as we speak. So it's weird because I keep reading from Anons with 47 followers that the show is tanking. Not according to the numbers I'm looking at anyway. So thank you guys for that very much. Appreciate that. Please keep it going. And please keep subscribing to our new YouTube channel as well. I am sure in light of the House Scamdemic report that admitted that people like us were unfairly censored by YouTube, the second largest search engine on the third rock from the sun. I am sure we will be getting a phone call from Silicon Valley and Google executives, since they own YouTube. I'm sure they'll be calling to apologize any day now.
Mistakes were made.
Yep, and promising to remove any of the shadow bans or other stiflings of our content within their social media realms that are currently ongoing. I'm very confident of it, in fact. So confident, in fact, I will begin holding my breath now in anticipation. Except I'm pro-life and prefer to live, so I won't do that, right? Right. So please subscribe to our new YouTube channel at Deace Show on YouTube. Again, you can subscribe at Deace Show on YouTube. Okay. This part of the show brought to you by our friends over at Miracle Made. You know, I love my Miracle Made sheets. I mean, I love these things. They should, their website should be thebomb.com is what it should be, because that's what they are. Instead, it's trymiracle.com, which is catchy too. All right. So no matter the change of season, right, whether it's really hot outside, really cold like it is right now, we've got all 4 of those seasons in Iowa too. The seasons in the spring and the fall, where it's cool nice during the day, cool at night. You got the AC on during the day, the windows open at night, right? No matter the change of seasons, all right, the silver infused fabrics inspired by NASA help with thermo-regulating your temperature for your optimal sleep all night long. Did I mention I love these things? Okay. And they're very comfy. All right. Right? Because listen, man, you could probably wrap yourself in aluminum foil and also regulate your temperature all night long. But nobody wants to sleep in that. All right. So they're also very comfortable. All right. So go to trymiracle.com/Deace and get your Miracle Made sheets today. And whether you're buying them for yourself or as a gift for a loved one, if you order today, you can save over 40%. And if you use your promo code Deace at checkout, you'll get 3 free towels and save an extra 20%. Miracle is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you aren't 100% satisfied, you'll get a full refund. Upgrade your sleep with Miracle Made. Go to trymiracle.com/Deace and use the code Deace to claim your free 3-piece towel set and save over 40% off. That's trymiracle.com/Deace to treat yourself or someone you love this Christmas. Trymiracle.com/Deace using the promo code Deace. All right, you guys ready for some Feedback Friday? Because we haven't had a chance to do this in a bit.
Let's do it.
All right, let us begin with Ben from Ohio. Ben says, I thought of something that you said before the election, basically a way that Democrats could have effectively, well, let me edit, Ben, more effectively. I just don't know that it would have been successful ultimately, but what I'm going to suggest here at the end of your email, I think would have been more successful than let's just run on killing as many babies as we can. Granted, that doesn't make me a great strategist. It's a pretty low bar. All right. But anyway, Ben says that you thought they could have better effectively messaged against Trump, but you didn't want to put it out there until the election. So I wanted to circle back on that. Did you mention it? And I just didn't catch it. I did kind of mention it in passing a couple weeks back. But you know what? Since you brought it up and I made a point of it, yeah, I'll go ahead and lay it out a little bit more in detail now. But in short, what I was very surprised Democrats did not do is actually just admit to the suffering that's happening in the country, emote with it, and then turn and pivot and blame all of it on Trump. In other words, this is essentially what Barack Obama did in 2012. He struggled to get the economy going again after the crash of 2008. Things were very sluggish. Obamacare was very unpopular. He had lost badly in the 2010 midterms. And his approval rating was better than Biden's, but it was also just barely above 50%. He was beatable. But we chose to nominate the guy that gave Barack Obama his worst idea before he had it. So we took his biggest, weakest issue off the table. And I got called a concept traitor and obstructionist and purist because I was like, do you think maybe we should nominate someone that isn't for Barack Obama's kryptonite issue? Remember those days?
Yeah.
Good times. Good times. Yeah. Not that I'm bitter. Maybe a little. Anyway, moving on. So what Barack Obama did is he just said, yes, it sucks out there. And we're doing our best, but we had to dig out from the Bush administration. Just blamed it on Bush. And he wasn't even running against Bush. He was running against Romney. Just blame the whole thing on Bush. Sure enough, exit polling comes out. Opening on election night. Exit polling showed a majority of Americans still blamed the sluggish economy on Bush, not Obama. I was a contributor on MSNBC back in those days as a token conservative. And I sent a text to the executive producer at MSNBC that night. Can't congrats, you guys won. Because if that exit poll is true, there's no way Romney won. It turned out to be true, and he didn't. I was stunned they did not do that again. Just take all of their media, leverage that message. Hey, you can't let back the guy. Because there are things you could say that are true. Like Obi-Wan Kenobi once said from a certain point of view, right? They're not true in context, but they would be true. For example, we technically had a recession in 2020, if we really wanted to be honest about it. We did, when Trump was president. The reason why that would technically be a true statement, the reason why it's not often considered one is because the economy we had negative growth as a result of the shutdown of the healthcare sector. Right? Everything was shut down except for elective services. Well, understand, when you hear elective, a lot of you think, does that just mean like a liposuction? Because you think elective like in school, right? All right, there's your core classes I got to have to graduate. Then there's the electives that either I think might be fun or certain majors that I want to pursue in a university that I have to get. So I elect. Those things are optional, right? And there's specific cores I have. That's not what it actually means in healthcare. In healthcare, elective means everything that's not life-threatening is elective.
Correct.
So like a cancer screening is elective. Now, if you don't get screened for cancer, that could be an emergency, right? Okay. So everything that is not life and death is elective in healthcare. Now, so essentially, we just shut down about 80, 85, 90% of what we actually do in healthcare, which is one of the biggest industries in the country, on a daily basis. And we did it for months. And so, yeah, the economy was in a negative growth, which is recessionary. We were in a negative growth construct for much of 2020. Why? Well, because one of the biggest sectors in the country was shut down. We stopped doing all the non-life-threatening stuff. And then the what did you call it? Piles of ash, is that what you called it?
Yeah, heaping piles of ash.
The heaping piles of ash that were promised across the fruited plain never materialized to compensate for it, right? So you would like drive by your urgent care center or your hospital, unless you were in San Francisco or New York City or Detroit, a few other places, all right? Chances are you drove by your urgent care center and your hospital much of 2020, and the parking lot was what? Tumbleweeds, man. Tumbleweeds. It was empty. Because everything was shut down for months other than non-elective, which means things that are life-threatening. And so you take one of the largest sectors of the economy, healthcare, I think it's third right behind education and energy, maybe even second right behind energy. Take that, shut it basically down. That's going to generate a negative growth in the economy, right? In the macro. And it did. So would it be technically true to say that Trump presided over a recession? Yeah, you could make it work, and it would be technically true. Now, in context, it wouldn't be the traditional rationale for why a recession occurred, right? Do these people care about context or coercion? Are they context or coercion, Todd? What do you think they prefer?
Coercion.
Coercion always. So those are the kinds of things I thought they would do, and they did not. And I can't explain it other than because from a strategy standpoint, it made no sense. So I'm just going to assume that God is sovereign. That's my answer. Because it just from a human ingenuity strategy standpoint, it makes no sense, especially because Barack Obama is still obviously calling the shots over there with Joe having to go and everything else, or he's calling some of the shots at least, right? He's got some professor emeritus Gandalfian status in the Democratic Party, right? So he's the guy that actually worked that strategy. So the fact they didn't go back to it and just admit, yeah, everything's really high. We took over. Trump was a disastrous president. Look what he did. And it's taken us years to try to dig out of that. And we're just going to need more time. You don't want to go back to the guy that did that to you before. That's the message I thought they would do. especially because Trump had kind of cornered himself with, I don't think I've gotten the credit during COVID what I actually did, and wasn't really eager to show very much self-awareness about that period of time himself, right? That he could just walk right into that trap, yet they never did it. They didn't even try it, actually. Blew my mind. And so that makes no sense to me from a human strategy standpoint. Not saying it would have worked. They ran an absolute nincompoop moron. Yeah, and the previous president was incompetent, and everyone knows it, okay? And belongs in a nursing home, not at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. So I don't know that it would have worked, but it was certainly better than, I've got an idea. Let's just run on an issue that a base of people who vote for us no matter what, single women who just want to let dudes randomly blast off between their legs, and they can kill their babies if they want, okay? Let's just run on that platform and just get the same votes of all the people that were going to vote for us no matter what. It would have been better than that, right? I don't know that it would have worked, okay? Because Trump and his team down the stretch ran a phenomenal campaign, okay? So I don't know that it would have worked, but it would have been better than, let's just run on, have sex with a bunch of strangers and let them impregnate you and kill your kids that you conceive. At least that, can we at least stipulate, would have been, what I'm suggesting would have been a better strategy than that one.
Yeah, but the reason the other one happened is because they're a cult now. When you talk about the distinction between usual sin and the demonic, the old left and the now what it is, it's wherever that line is, I said, So
they're not capable of triangulation anymore?
Once we were at transgenderism, that was where I said, now all bets are off on that thing. You are at the line. You cross the line, Steve, into a place where somebody like Sotomayor says out loud and like arrogantly says, well, aspirin has side effects too.
Comparing aspirin to the same chemical castration drugs we give pedophiles in prisons and giving them to children.
She never would have said that 10 years ago.
No
she
doubt.
was like, that's
no doubt.
You cross,
maybe not even a year or two ago, frankly.
You cross the line. At some point, it's not just, I understand that there's inevitabilities that perhaps I can't foresee, and we're playing with fire, but we want to win, and we're going to win this election. And if we cross this certain line, it will be full-on cult. They cross that line, and even they know that. I mean, they can't sustain what you're talking about.
I agree with you. And that means then, therefore, we have to adjust our tactics moving forward accordingly. Mm-hmm. Okay? And God bless Drew Holden, who was on our show yesterday, and you could see, Drew's beaten brain cancer and everything else, man, okay? He's a dude, okay? But you could see, he's like, I keep trying to give people the benefit of the doubt, but he could tell he's wavering, right? And you know why he's wavering? Because I've been where Drew is at. I was like, guys, if we assume that the benefit of the doubt doesn't work anymore, do you all understand what this means? Okay, do not tread lightly into that paradigm. Do you understand now that this becomes a zero-sum game? Okay, and that's an existential cliff for a culture. So don't just mean that. Right? Don't just engagement farm that, okay? Talking point that, you're basically saying, okay, that we're back to Bull Run here. We're back to Antietam here. That's essentially what you're saying here, okay? And instead of the blue and the gray, it's the blue and the reds. So don't just cavalierly throw that out there with a picture of you in a big stogie because it's great for an engagement farm, okay? Do we understand the consequences that if we give up the ghost on this, that benefit of the doubt has been removed? What we will then have to do from a tactical standpoint, right? If the situation is there, then what the tactics call for then are a level of engagement that frankly we have demonstrated we have no stomach for, and 90% of the Republicans that we are electing around the country clearly don't, right?
Open wars upon you, whether you wish it or not.
And you could kind of see Drew, and when you and you can see a guy like Drew who has looked death in the face, right? And you come back and you're like, I want to give everybody the benefit of the doubt. Life is beautiful. It's a wonderful life, right? But you could kind of see him as we were talking about it yesterday. He's like, oh, man. Right, that was kind of, when I asked him, that was kind of, I don't know. That was kind of his reaction. And that was my reaction about 2018, 2019. I was like, I might let go of the rope here.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I let go of that rope a long time ago. We need, if what you're saying is true, and I sadly believe that it is, then we all need to understand what that means. All of us. Like the nice lady who sent me a note yesterday, I've got a coworker who wants me to call them by their pronouns. How should I respond? No. You have to understand now what this means. All right, that's not, there's not a, you don't have to respond. She's insane. That's your response. No. If she said, you need to refer to me as a salamander, you wouldn't do it. And no one would ask you to, and there's no coercive political force behind calling people salamanders and identifying them by amphibious status. Only by this. So then if we set the precedent that we're going to acknowledge insanity because you can threaten me politically, do you understand where that will ultimately go? To the exact places we currently are and worse. That's where it will go. All right, let's move on. After we talk about our friends over at Patriot Mobile, Americans, man, we would love to continue and have more options to support actual American companies. More of that parallel economy is coming. Thankfully, one place where we have it available right now is with one of these, the device we all need in this day and age to thrive in modern America. Okay, so if you want to no longer give your money directly to companies who hate you and yet get the same exact outstanding network and coverage that they offer, but with a U.S.-based customer service team that you can understand, and a company that will then not only take the money you give them and not use it against you, but reinvest it back into the values that you believe in. Sounds too good to be true? It's not. We've been clients of Patriot Mobile. We were patient with T-Mobile for too long and then became clients of Patriot Mobile a few years ago, and we've never looked back. So make the switch today. They'll give you a free month of service when you do. PatriotMobile.com/Steve. That's PatriotMobile.com/Steve. Use the offer code Steve for a free month of service at PatriotMobile.com/Steve. All right, Kevin Clark says, I am a Christian Gen X grandfather from Springfield, Ohio. Yes, that's Springfield. They're eating the cats. They're eating the dogs. That's going to be an all-time great. One of the sports podcasts I love listening to resets that whenever they pick underdogs in their picks contest. They play that drop of Trump. They're eating the cats. They're eating the dogs. And I'm just sitting there at the gym and I just indiscriminately laugh out loud whenever I hear that. He says, we need Vance and Trump to push DeWine to fill Vance's seat with someone who will push their agenda. Mike, as you know, is as rhino as they come, definitively a Bush type. We deserve someone who will be more of a Vance and less of a DeWine. Wholeheartedly agree. Wholeheartedly agree?
I agree with everything except the deserve part. What are you prepared to do? Do you deserve it? DeWine's your governor. Do you deserve that? Get busy living or get busy dying. I don't know. Make it happen. We just got done talking about leverage on this show with Trump appointees, with our senator here in Iowa. Game on. Let's see. Let's find out.
Yes. I mean, there's an obvious choice here. We've talked about him before, and his name sounds like Vivek. That's Vivek. This isn't easy. This is 2 + 2. In my mind, anyway.
Well, see, I'd rather see Vivek at governor. He's been an executive. I'd rather see him executively. I
guess that's what we talked about as governor.
Yeah, but I mean, he would be in the Vance mold as a senator too. At least what he's, the profile that he has positioned himself with, he would be. I mean, we don't know. He's never held elective office, so we don't know. He's not really been tested in the arena. I mean, prior to this presidential run, all he'd really done in politics is written a couple of books that actually had some conflicting ideas. And one of them, he was all about taking on woke, and the other one, he really went hard after Trump for January 6th. So from a messaging standpoint, the guy is brilliant, but we don't really know. It's not really been tested yet. Him he's more, I would say politically, he's more of a hypothesis than a theory. And I also think as a senator, there's way more still opportunity you can hide than as governor if you're him, right? because you're also going to get to take a lot of votes that things can't possibly happen, so it can make you look principled. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Or you can justify taking a bad vote because, well, we have to do this to fund the troops or something like that. Governor is a revealer. That's how you know who Mike, because, by the way, Mike DeWine was in Congress before he was governor. Okay? Governor is a revealer because you're now, in many respects, a king. And you're calling many of the shots now. And who somebody really is and what their priorities truly are will come out in a way, being governor, that no other job in politics would reveal, other than if you were the president of the United States, which is the chief of the chief executive jobs, right? The governor of the governors, right? But we both wholeheartedly agree with you, brother. Yeah. And I like the way that you frame that too. If to me, the way to put pressure on DeWine is, listen, the people voted for J.D. Vance. So then we should get a J.D. Vance profile person in exchange. That's the will of the people. We had a primary. If we wanted a candidate that had a different profile, that candidate would have defeated J.D. Vance, right? Okay. Mm-hmm. So we wanted someone with the issue profile of J.D. Vance. That's what we voted for in the primary. And then the people of Ohio voted for that. And so therefore, someone that is cut from a similar cloth should be that person. And frankly, J.D. Vance should have that name in mind.
And the way you're saying this is so obvious. Once again, I'll just remind you, if that won't or can't happen for reasons, I mean, it's time to start burning some stuff down, I mean, because you just said, you did not do calculus right there, Steve, and you're very capable and do it all the time on the show. That was 1 + 1 = 2. And if they won't let you have 1 + 1 = 2 in a red state, I don't know. That's also the place where the abortion amendment. How'd that go, Steve, in that state?
Yeah. We got.
So let's not lie to ourselves.
No pun intended. We got killed.
Let's not lie to ourselves. Then.
Yeah. We got killed. Tom Gregory says illegal immigration would be fixed with one law and a few policies. Number one, enact a law that if you are caught in the U.S. illegally, you are documented and barred from ever becoming a citizen. Number two, all existing asylum seekers who do not make their appointments are permanently barred from becoming a citizen and are subject to immediate deportation. Number three, announce that the U.S. will not for 2 years accept any new applications for asylum. Number four, we will not gather your identifiable information on your way out. Though simple, these will not be easy. I believe this would cause self-deportation in droves, as those who are here illegally want some way to stay permanently, even if that means leaving and trying to come back later.
I will just channel you. Not bad ideas. There's the laws already on the table. There's no doubt that certain specific laws, maybe these, maybe different ones, could help too. But when Steve tells you this is not a nation of laws, this is a nation of political will, he's talking about this issue right here. Do you want to do it or not? Because if you do want to do it, Tom, what's his name? Homan? Yeah. Yep. Well, we're just going to do it. That's it.
Yeah. And this is freaking James Lankford gave the Democrats this issue by, at least gave them an out on this issue by completely seeding the premise that you already have the power. It's been vested in you in the Constitution. It's your job, in fact, to make sure your border is secure and make sure the people in this country are supposed to be in this country or not. So then all it becomes is the Biden administration had zero will, or at least they had a will for something else other than actually doing their damn jobs. Do you have the will to actually carry this out? You don't need Congress. You don't need anything else. I'm sure there's going to be some courts that try to step in with a universal injunction. Nope. Screw you. Welcome to enforce your rule. You have neither force nor will to do so. That's all that it comes down to is will. And they're talking the talk over there, especially Tom Homan. They're talking the talk, and I'm anxious to see them walk the walk.
As you were talking, Aaron, I went back and found my old archive at Town Hall from when I was with Salem, because I wrote about this. Man, I'm trying to find it. I can't find it right now, so sorry. But I laid out in immigration policy about 10 years ago some of the things that you mentioned here in your note, Tom Gregory, are in mine. But there are two things I think we have to address. The number one reason people are coming here are for welfare state benefits. That's the number one reason. So you have to just make it outside of an emergency life or death situation, no non-citizens are eligible for any form of welfare benefit from the United States of America. That you have to add that. The second thing you need to do is have a counter to the other side's emotionalism that the American people think they want mass deportations now. We'll see if that's true when the emotionalism of the other side really ratchets up once the deportations begin, okay? And so I think you should have an immediate counter, and here's what I would do. I would tell people that if you have, if you've assimilated here and been and otherwise not broken any laws of the United States for the last 10 years. So you've been here for a long period of time, okay? You've been here for over a decade. In the last decade, if you have assimilated and not broken any other laws, we will offer you permanent residency status. But you cannot be a citizen and you can never vote. In other words, call the Democrats bluff. Okay. Permanent residency status for those that who have been here for a long period of time and for at least 10 years, because now that's a really long period of time, right? For at least 10 years have broken no other laws. For at least 10 years. But they can never they get permanent residency status, but they can never become a citizen and they can never vote. They can never vote.
You're using my hard cases abortion logic.
Correct.
It's the exact same thing.
Yes.
They won't
do it. And put Kristi Noem's stunning face up there and those piercing blue eyes she has and those teeth that she did that really creepy infomercial with, but they do look really good if we're being honest. All right, so put her up there and that stunning made up face of hers and her ability to articulate and offer the Democrats that deal on national television. They've been here more than 10 years, at least 10 years, I should say, and no other crimes have been committed. They can stay. They can never acquire citizenship, however, as a penalty. That's the restitution they must make. We're not going to impose hefty fines they probably can't pay. So the restitution is they never get to be, that they owe the American people, because they did break the law by coming here. So the restitution, therefore, is they can never become citizens and they can never vote. And then they're happy to continue on in their lives here as productive members of society. And we hope that the next generation of their children that are born and bred here fully assimilate and love America, like you're seeing in the last election when we had a historic turnout of Hispanics for Republicans. That's exactly what I would do. If I were running the policy, if I were running the messaging and the strategy, that's what I would do. Thoughts?
I think, see, that's where that singular argument that you have, not the bullet point list, to say that, you have to have will behind it. I mean, I just think just that one thing before you get on the particulars, are you willing to confront the other side utterly and completely with their fiasco and their scam? Mm-hmm. That's what that question you ask them, that proposition does. See that? If you're not willing to do something like that, you're not really willing to. You think there's an easy way. There's not. Are you all in or not?
All right, we'll come back. More Feedback Friday in a moment. Stay tuned. All right, back here on the Steve Deace Show with a word about our friends over at PREBORN. If you are considering your year-end giving, as many of us are this time of year, I mean, there are a few more worthy entities than our friends over at PREBORN. The work they do every day, putting their clinics in some of the highest abortion rate areas in the country. They're literally out there on the streets meeting moms that are considering the murder of their children right where they're at. They confront them with the ultrasound so that their conscience can hear that heartbeat and realize that doesn't belong to them. That's another person. And then if they choose life, as they often do. They're there to support them all the way up to 2 years after the birth with prenatal, postnatal care, counseling, support, practical things like car seats, diapers. By the way, all of this stuff, from the ultrasound to the diapers, all of it's free to the mom and her baby. Now, of course, none of this stuff is actually free, and that's where you and I come in. You can make a tax-deductible donation today for as little as $28. You can fund an ultrasound that might save a life today. All right, where else would be a better expenditure of $28 than that? All right, so make a tax-deductible donation today to preborn.com/Steve. Again, head over to preborn.com/Steve. Once again, preborn.com/Steve. All right, let's move on. Susan in Draper, Virginia says, would you further opine on your belief that if the elections are about personalities, the Democrats win, and if they're about issues, the Republicans win? You bet. I still think this is true, even as you're watching the Republicans become more of a coalition-based party than an ideologically based party. And I think because of something, Todd, you said earlier when you mentioned they're incapable of triangulation now. Okay? So they're going to need to run very likable people because they're going to just run up front on insanity. They're just going to run up front on castrate your kids, hand over your job if you don't go with this, let us indoctrinate your kids. They're just going to openly run on this stuff now. That's the era in which we are in. And so they, to some degree, have always required a cool factor. And that's why whenever elections are about personalities, hey, Bill Clinton played the saxophone. When Jimmy Carter promised he'd never lie to us, and he's a humble peanut farmer against the unelected Gerald Ford. Barack Obama, absolve yourself of your inherited generational racism and vote for America's first black president. These are all personality contests. When elections are about personalities, Democrats win. When they're about issues, Republicans win. And I think that will remain the case even as the Republicans now evolve into more of a coalition-based than ideologically based party. Because you still have the Republican coalition is not like the Democrat coalition. The Democrat coalition is still a coalition of identities. The Republican coalition is a coalition of ideological factions. So it's still going to be when elections are about personalities, Democrats win. When they're about issues, Republicans win.
It's all a little confusing and muddy right now because the biggest personality in any room is Donald Trump. Yeah.
Right. And Steve, that's a great point. And Steve, didn't you say that Trump really helped himself and the best strategic move of his entire campaign was doing these long form conversations where he could reveal more of himself? Yes. So I'm saying that under the backdrop, though, that we're human beings. Okay? We're not robots. We're not algorithms. So when I say that, when elections are about personalities, Democrats win. When they're about issues, Republicans win. Am I saying, therefore, that Democrats can then take any position on any issue they want as long as they have a charismatic candidate? Is that what I'm saying? No. Am I saying that Republicans can put up someone that just has like functional Asperger's and no personality at all, but if they're perfect on the issues, though, is that what I'm saying? No. I mean, we're in degrees here because we're still human beings. There is still the human interaction. Okay. And so a Democrat has to be willing at some point has to be able to articulate to enough people outside of their own cult that they have an issue-based concern that resonates with them, right? For example, Joe Biden running on, we got to bring decency back. Normalcy back. Trump's been too disruptive. Everything's too unsettled. You don't trust him. You feel as if he's unstable, right? I've been a fixture. Okay, similar to Trump giving people who did not want to vote for him because of his personality enough of a nuanced look at his personality that they will now consider the fact he is superior on the issues. Let me give you an analogy, one that Todd will hate. All right. Did Bryce Underwood, the number one college high school player in the country, sign with Michigan because they offered him the most money? Yes. Did he only sign with Michigan because they offered him the most money? No. If Louisiana Tech has an oil baron, calls up Bryce Underwood and says, hey, we'll give you $15 million over 4 years to come here. Is he playing at Louisiana Tech? No. What happened is Michigan offered an amount of money that then the other things Michigan brought to the table that LSU never did, a way more expanded alumni base of contacts and networks of people, even more exposure at Michigan than you'd get at an LSU. It's the hometown team. Him and his family can stay there. Him and his girlfriend can stay there. You see what I'm saying? Michigan, in poker, the term is the ante. There's a basic a baseline you've got to meet before you're dealt into the game. So yes, I mean, it's not a coincidence that he signed with Michigan, who offered him the most money. But if Louisiana Tech does, Wayne State does, Washington State does, he's not going there. So that's does it make sense what I'm trying to say here? Okay. Trump passed a threshold from a personality standpoint that permitted him to trump what they were saying about his personality and then make it about issues. So did he win because his favorables went up? Yes. It helped him to win. But it helped him to win so that he was allowed to then pivot away from them trying to drag him down into a personality contest and have the issue kitchen table contest that the voters actually wanted to have. Does that make sense?
It does, but all Michigan analogies are the closest thing to you getting shot by me, for sure. For sure.
Then from now on, I'll just ignore you. Aaron, does that make sense? Lie to me.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, thank you, Aaron. Thank you. All right, where are we going to go next?
I just want to
go ahead. Sure, you bet.
The 2028 Democrat primaries are going to be incredible.
Lit.
What can they do?
Yes.
Okay, we're not talking about a general election here. We are talking about a party that has been taken over and overridden by cancer.
Wings at an asylum.
Yes.
Wings at an asylum.
So people are talking about, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she's too liberal. No, don't laugh at that. She's perfect for them. If AOC runs, she might have a shot.
You know what, Aaron, I've not even thought about this. But brother, you're so right on the money with that. We're essentially like, imagine a Batman video game set in Arkham Asylum, but there's no Batman.
Right.
And so you're just watching Two-Face controls this wing, and the Joker controls that one, and the Penguin has this one, and Catwoman has that one, and the Scarecrow has this one, right?
There's clearly...
And they're just squaring off against each other.
There's clearly a strain over in lefty land that is like, okay, we got to get rid of the identity politics, but they're going to be drowned out by the screaming of the identity politics. That's what's going to happen. It's going to be a fascinating watch because there's who's on their bench now? Hillary Clinton? Okay. Joe Biden, he has the veneer of normalcy. He has the veneer of class, but he's completely run. And
Newsom, Whitmer, they'll run.
They'll run, but are they going to be far enough? Are they going to present far enough to the left for the Democrat base?
Whitmer will attack Newsom for being a man and misogynist.
Yes.
Newsom then, to compensate for that, will probably have to do an actual live abortion on camera, right? There's going to be non-whites that are going to run and that are going to call the whites racist. You bet. And here's the thing. Tell me who, like you had Barack Obama at the 2004 Democratic Convention give that, stunning keynote that was inspiring, right? And you didn't think that his future was the very next cycle, but that was a guy that you at least knew was coming, right? Who's on the come over there? Who's on the come as you look at their bench right now and you're thinking, man, that guy or that gal has the kind of persona that's going to make it really hard for us to overcome the attraction of their charisma. Who is that?
Don't know.
I don't either. Which means they'd have to, by and large, run on the issues. And when elections are about issues, we win, and when they're about personalities, they do. They need someone whose charisma and political talent is enough that you just are enthralled by that and don't actually even vet them on the issues. You're attracted to that level of charisma and celebrity. So who is that? Exactly. I'm sure, knowing the devil, I'm sure they're in the lab right now in hell trying to maneuver who but that's the kind of person they're going to need to craft for 28. I just don't know who it is, right? I mean, that person isn't present at the moment.
And I know, Todd, you love to talk about 28, but this conversation is all the more important for the here and now, because still this country is on a razor's edge. This presidency has to be successful, which is why I'm so optimistic right now, because it seems like there is a plan. But the only reason you lose to whatever the madness is that we're just describing, that we'll see, the only reason
is if we fail.
Correct.
Their ability to conjure that kind of a persona greatly increases if we fail these next 4 years. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
I agree. Yes.
I was going to make that point. They can't manufacture the kind of person you're talking about. We can through our failures. Absolutely, that can happen, which is why the immigration discussion we just had. You can lay out all the bullet points you want. If you don't execute, you will help them manufacture that person. If you ask questions, though, and put forward premises, like you said, that back them into corners over and over again, I think the victory's already at hand.
We're playing for high stakes here, aren't we?
Good.
We are, and we should be. We should be. I think, and I'm optimistic based on what I have seen thus far. I think there is a chance, in his own way. You know, Kim Reynolds' persona is not the same as Ron DeSantis is, and Ron DeSantis' persona is not the same as hers, and the states aren't the same, and the populations aren't the same, right? But I see Trump this time ready to hit the ground running to govern. There's a plan. They're executing it. Hasn't been executed perfectly. No plan ever is, by the way. Okay. It's called human nature and living in a fallen world. But if what we saw in Iowa and in Florida, and to a lesser degree, Georgia, Brian Kemp has done some things to rightly earn some scorn from our base. Because there's been some moments he's been great, and there's been some other moments like
he's been in Davos.
Why are you in Davos, dude? What are you doing there? Right? Like, I mean, that's like, you know, hey, unless you're a missionary or a pedophile, why are you in Bangkok? You know what I'm saying? There's only two kinds of white people that go to Bangkok: pedophiles and missionaries. Only two kinds. Straight up, am I lying? No. There's only two reasons white people go to Bangkok. You're a pedophile or you're a missionary. There's no other reason why. All right. Similarly, why is what's a politician doing in Davos? What are we doing there? You know, that's like a song. One night in Davos makes a hard man humble. I mean, what are you doing there? Why go there? Right. The only reason a Republican is going to Davos is you're Larry Alex taunting. You're going there to taunt him, okay, to troll him, or you're making us like asking Brian Kemp's case, what you doing? Right. On the other hand, remember, he was the first one, even before DeSantis, he was the first one that faced Disney down. Everybody forgets about this. Remember, they passed the heartbeat bill there. Disney had, you know, all the Disney actors and actresses said, because they filmed so much of their stuff in Georgia, all the Marvel stuff, for example, we can't have this. We can't, you know, we can't have our orgies and get pregnant because apparently no one can here, despite our massive 8-figure salaries, afford the 75 cent for a rubber. Okay. And so we are all going to impregnate each other and kill our kids. We can't do that in Georgia anymore. We're going to have to move all our productions, right? And the Disney, I think it was actually, who was it? It was not the guy they have now, but the guy they brought back was the guy that did the fight. He picked the fight with Kemp and said, if you sign this into law, we're going to move all of our productions out of Georgia. What did Kemp do? Signed it into law and called their bluff, right? So even before DeSantis did that, Kemp did that. Okay. So to a lesser degree, Kemp has proven this too, and Reynolds and DeSantis have both proven as well, that if you govern well, you destroy all of their narratives. And you really isolate them as a party. Just completely isolate them as a party.
Yeah.
To just their insanity. And this is the opportunity that President Trump has right now. And I think he sees that, and he's trying to seize it. If he governs well over the next 4 years, he has a chance on a national level to isolate the Democratic Party the way Reagan did coming out of the 80s, where he had them cornered as well. Until Bush came in and blew up the paradigm and let the Democrats, camel's nose back under the tent.
And this is look at from a 28 perspective in terms of this isn't just theoretical. Look at you're proving the point. They ran on controversial things that made the left hate them, but because they governed so well, who did DeSantis and our governor Kim Reynolds run against the last time around? Absolutely nobody. So had no shot.
I can't even remember who the Democrat nominee for governor was in my own state.
This is the point of our entire.
I literally don't remember the name.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think, Mr. Photographic Memory. I know it was a woman, right?
Yeah.
I cannot remember her name.
Yeah. And you so destroyed the previous person that ran against her because of how you governed that Mike Pike just took out the last guy, the guy who ran against our governor before that. I mean, yeah, if you govern well, 2020, that's my point. 2028 is done now. So I don't mind talking about it in that sense.
Deidre DeGier.
Yeah, that's her. Yeah.
Deidre.
I would have never guessed that. Yeah. I mean, we could have sat here for 30 minutes and I would not have come up with that name.
I was going to guess Phoebe. I was a little outside.
Myrtle. That's our guess.
I thought it was Phoebe.
Every time there's some woman's name on the left, we can't remember whether it's What's It's Nuts, that one website, Right Wing Watch.
Oh,
we always our go-to is always Myrtle or Ethel. Right. Somewhere in this audience, there's like a boomer grandma with like an American flag slippers on right now that loves this show. And her name's Myrtle. And she's really mad at us for that. And we're sorry. We should not do that to you. You're right to be mad at us. Okay. But I did not remember her name. Had no clue. I'm trying to think if I can remember who DeSantis beat. It's Nikki something.
Yeah.
Nikki Fried.
Is it Fried?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I knew it was Nikki something. What does that go to tell you though? This is the opportunity now that Trump and his team have, and I think they're poised to at least attempt to seize it. Now, it's way harder to do this at a federal level than it is even at a state level, where it's really hard even there. But I think they at least recognize that opportunity, and they're trying to seize it. Everybody have a great weekend. We're going to stick around and do overtime for Blaze TV subscribers. For the rest of you, see you then. Romans 8:28.